We're taking it down a notch in this episode of the Heart Centre Business Podcast. It's time for another episode from the floor of my office. It's a Podcarpet. And in today's episode, I want to talk about the energy behind your business. This is episode number 444 of the Heart Centre Business Podcast, which means you can find all the relevant links and the show notes for today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/444. Let's dive in. Hello, I'm Tash Corbin, a business strategist and mentor based on the Sunshine Coast in Australia. The mission of this podcast is to help heart-centered entrepreneurs to make more money and in doing so, change the world for the better. This podcast was recorded on the lands of the Gubbi Gubbi and Jinnaburra people. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. So as I sit here on the floor of my office, I've been working on some creative projects today. I have a question for you. How are you feeling? Whether it be in your business, about your life, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about the world. All of it. How are you feeling? The energy that we have as entrepreneurs and business owners has a huge impact on how we show up, and it has a huge impact on our business as well. The energy behind our business is quite obvious to observers. So if right now your answer to how are you feeling is not how you want to feel, it's not feeling the best. If how you are feeling is depleted, regardless of whether you think you're faking it or not, it has a huge impact and it is something that is observable. Now, one thing that I want to be very clear on when we have this conversation is that you don't need to be feeling at your absolute best every single time you work on your business. As someone who deals with chronic health conditions and a huge roller coaster of energy, particularly as I'm now in perimenopause, if I waited until I had the perfect energy and the perfect mindset to take action, I wouldn't be taking action consistently. And I think it's very, very privileged and ableist to even imply that that's something we can work towards or access at a whim. But that being said, if you are depleted, if you've got that energy of desperation, if you are bringing an energy of judgment and ridicule of the people you are speaking to, if you are faking things, if you're trying to put on a front, even if you're showing off because you are feeling less than or unworthy otherwise, that energy has a very specific and tangible impact on your business and on how your content and your creations are received. So if you are feeling tired and depleted, what's the minimum you need to do to be able to take a guilt-free rest of the day off? If you are feeling like you're unworthy and you have to put on a front and fake things because for some reason you have that imposter syndrome, or you're feeling really unsure of yourself, how can you create that sense of self-confidence from within rather than needing to fake it? And have a think about how you show up and the energy with which you speak to your audience and the world at large. If you are constantly judging and criticizing others, it can often be a reflection of that deep sense of criticism of yourself. That sense that somehow you're not good enough or worthy enough unless you're perfect. And because of that, you focus on and point out the imperfections in others. Today is the perfect day. Now is the perfect time to really consider the energy that is going on behind your business, the energy that you bring into your business, and the energy that is perceived by people who engage with your business. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to take this to mean that you need to stop taking action until you've sorted it. Instead, this is a loving nudge to notice and decide. Do you want to shift and change the energy behind your business? And if you do, this could be a powerful time for you to consider what you need and what action you'll take to make that shift. This is a particularly powerful question to be considering because our next episode of this podcast is with the spectacular Kerry Rowett. And Kerry has a special reading for us, specifically the listeners of the Heart Centre Business Podcast, as we transition into the new year. So I want you, between now and the next episode, to really have a think and consider, what is the energy behind your business? What do you want it to be? And how can you start shifting it? How can you start moving towards that energy that you want to embrace? This has been episode number 444 of the Heart Centre Business Podcast. If, subsequent to listening to this episode, you have a follow-up question for me, I'll pop a link with the show notes of today's episode where you can submit your question in to the podcast. You'll find everything at tashcorbin.com/444. Until next time, I cannot wait to see you shine.